So, what records have I been listening to recently? I'm going to show you some of them. Not all of them, because in many cases I forgot to make a note in my notebook and I just put them back on the shelf. However, I did write some down. So these are some of the records I've been listening to recently, once or possibly twice, not in any sequence. So let's start with this one on the top of the pile. Public Image Limited, first issue from 1978. This is one of those records where the critics didn't seem to like it. I didn't know that at the time. In fact, I didn't know this record at the time. Obviously, I was too young for that, believe it or not. But by the way, my favorite thing about this record is the fact that it says Public Image Limited would like to thank absolutely nobody. Thank you. That's fantastic. You know, I knew who the Sex Pistols were, oddly. And I knew them because at the time that record came out, the song God Save the Queen received some press attention, and I guess it was felt to be disrespectful. So I remember watching a little news segment with my parents about that track, and I heard a bit of it. I was quite intrigued. But that's all I knew about them, and I didn't know PIL until many years later. I think this is really good. I always like the deep end of, or the low end of PIL records, so, you know, the drum and the bass. I think that's always very interesting. UK pressing on this one. Oddly, it has just a plain white sleeve that says Made in Great Britain, but I believe, according to Discogs, that this should have a printed inner sleeve, but my copy doesn't have one. I bought it used. I can't remember when. This is a great record, if you ask me. I think the critics were wrong, as they often are. I think it's fun. I quite enjoy that one. I hadn't heard it in quite a long time, though. And here's another debut, oddly. A debut EP from REM called Chronic Town from 1982. Another record I did not know at the time. I think the first REM track I heard was probably Can't Get There From Here. It had some attention on video shows that were on in the afternoon. I really quite like that. So there's 5 tracks here. It's a much rougher and much more raw sound than on subsequent REM records, but I guess it sort of indicated what sound the band would have. This is a Canadian pressing. Nothing really remarkable about it, although the inner sleeve might not be correct because it's printed in the USA and it says A&A. This is an A&A record sleeve. That's weird. Again, another used purchase. I probably should seek out a better copy because this one is quite crackly between tracks, which is something that really irritates me. But this is quite enjoyable. I think it's very good. Now here's some new wave sophistopop. From 1985, we have China Crisis and Flaunt the Imperfection. This record, of course, was the one where they brought in Walter Becker from Steely Dan to produce. In fact, he's credited as being a band member on this record. So you'll see the track listing. It does say produced by Walter Becker there. And on the inner sleeve, he's listed as a member, playing synthesizer and percussion. I think this is a terrifically well-produced record. I think it's fantastic. It may even have my favorite China Crisis song. Well, that's sometimes hard to tell, but I do love the track Black Man Ray, and I also like King and the Catholic Style. So Black Man Ray may be my favorite China Crisis record. It's hard to say. This is on Red Virgin labels. Yes, indeed. So a good record. I think Walter Becker produced the next one. I think that was it. I do love the first 3 China Crisis records. I think they're all very good. Now here's something I've had on CD for, oh my God, such a long time. I can't remember when I got it. This is a vinyl version of OMD, Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark, Peel Sessions 1979 to 1983. This has an advantage over my CD copy because there's an additional track. The CD is like an abridged, I guess, incomplete, because it says here, these recordings have never been issued on vinyl, and this is the complete Peel Sessions together for the first time on any format. In fact, it was released on vinyl unofficially. I did see a copy of that somewhere. I thought it was weird because I knew it was coming out on RSD, and I saw it well before RSD, so it made me suspicious, but it is an unofficial copy. Even well-known songs such as Enola Gay take on new life here. Rougher, rawer, and much more experimental. Anyway, it's good. It has some really classic early tracks like Bunker Soldiers, Julia's Song, Messages, Red Frame, White Light, Pretending to See the Future, etc. And then stuff through Dazzle Ships and whatnot. Oddly, despite the fact that they show these 4 record covers, there's nothing on here from Architecture and Morality. which is interesting. There's the quite nice upside down labels. So that's a fun listen. I've always enjoyed the CD of these recordings, so that's cool. Now here's a record that I avoided for so long because I was sick and tired of the single on this record. This single was played on the radio when it came out where I lived every hour for it seemed like months on end, and I was just tired of it. But at some point I just gave in and decided to buy this record. Nick Lowe's Labor of Lust. Man, I can't even tell you how many times I heard Cruel to Be Kind. It was just getting on my nerves. I have to admit though, it's a good song. Switchboard Susan is also on here, and there's lots of other cool tracks on here, but man, that really drove me crazy. So I refused to buy this record because I knew I would not like to hear that song again. I can listen to it now, and I think I'm okay with it, but man, it was rough. This is on Columbia. So I don't know when I picked this up, but many, many years after the fact. It's not a perfect copy, there's a few scuffs and things, but yeah, it's actually good to hear it. I think he writes really good songs. I have other recordings from him as well, but it's one of those things where it just kind of grated on me. So here's a record that is the first record from this particular band that I ever had. And I think that's true of many people in Canada because before this record came here, before this album was released in Canada, I don't think anyone knew this band very well. That is The Church and Starfish from 1988. I mean, some people may have known The Church. I certainly didn't. I didn't know them until I heard Under the Milky Way, which is a fantastic track. I've since picked up 3 to 4 other records from The Church, which are extraordinarily difficult to find here. And when you do find them, they're expensive. I sometimes see this at record fairs for around $40, which I think is kind of crazy. Of course, the other big track on here was probably Reptile. So, yeah, I'm on a quest to get more, well, there's the Starfish, more records from this band because I think they're quite good. Upside down label, right side up label. Good record, recommended. I think that really brought them to Canada, maybe North America, who knows. Here's a band that every time I listen to it, I think, why don't I listen to this band more often? Because they're absolutely incredible. That is Pere Ubu. I put this on the other day and I was like, why don't I listen to more Pere Ubu? I mean, I do listen to them, but there's long gaps. And every time I hear them, I think this is such a inventive, it's hard to call him a band because really David Thomas is the only consistent member, but the vision he has, I think, is really interesting. And every time I hear them, it's like a revelation. Even though I've heard this many times, this is their second last album number, I don't know, 18, 19, 20, something like that. The Long Goodbye with that sort of Philip Marlowe looking cover there. Terrific, absolutely wonderful. I haven't heard a bad song from Pere Ubu. Just really good. This is a gatefold. If I can open it. There we go. Highway 66, I guess. Plain black sleeve. There we go. Pere Ubu, The Long Goodbye. What is this, 2019, I think. Did I tell you that? Did I say that? 2019. How do you like that? Anyway, terrific. Terrific. Here's a record from a band that kind of changed their sound after a departure of a certain band member. So Captain Sensible left, and The Damned came back with a sort of goth record that really isn't punk at all. Phantasmagoria from 85. Kind of a cool record. Took me a while to actually appreciate this, but I do really like it. It's just when I hear it, it's like it's such a different kind of experience. But I've always loved this album cover, front and back. What's on the inside again? Oh yeah, just MCA label. Upside down, right side up. But a good record overall. I think it's really good if you can adjust to the change of sound and the departure of Captain Sensible. Really recent record still in the shrink wrap here. This is from 2019. This is the Fontaines DC, Doggerel. I think this band can do no wrong. Everything they've released, I have absolutely loved. I think they just are one of those bands that so far have never misfired. And if you've never heard it, I recommend, well, Big, it's a good introductory song, very short, but Boys in the Better Land, fantastic. There's a good video for that too. Man, such a good, even Cecile likes them. So, there they are, led by Grian Chatten. Absolutely terrific. Upside down. Is that upside down? Everything's upside down. Cool. Haven't seen them in concert. They're a band I would absolutely love to see. Yeah. So every record they put out, I've loved. I've loved Grian Chatten's solo record. Very, very good. Now here's a record I would have passed over in the record bin had it not been for a friend of mine. So years ago, like we're talking, can I say 30 years ago? Maybe. A friend of mine gave me a CD from a guy called Max Brennan. It was called Alien to Whom. And it was really outside of my musical interest, but I quite liked it. In a sort of, all these words are going to sound accurate but wrong at the same time, like jazzy funk electronic. That's three words like that kind of put me off, but for some reason it really worked. Maybe a bit of techno. Anyway, I was in a record store and I saw this for very cheap. It's Max Brennan's We Are Part of Us and So Are You, a double album from Max Brennan, which is really cool. Not the kind of music I necessarily normally listen to, but something about this record is really fantastic. These are not necessarily in the best. These records are not necessarily in the best of shape. There is some crackle and whatnot. I think they've been well used, but absolutely love it. I think he only really did 2 records: the Alien to Whom, which I have on CD, and this one. I think that might have been it. But really intriguing. I find the music really energetic, kind of odd, kind of cool. And then moving from that sort of mood, I remember playing this right after. This is a really weird sort of soundtrack called Drock, called Music Inspired by Mega City 1. I guess that's some sort of a video game by Jeff Barrow and Ben Salisbury. Now, Jeff Barrow was the producer behind Portishead, and Ben Salisbury is this musician who has done a lot of soundtrack work. They've done many collaborations together. This just happens to be one of the things they've done together. Love this album cover. This is all instrumental pieces inspired by Mega City 1. I found this in a box of records in a bookstore for like $5 or $6, and I bought it without knowing anything about it, and I think it's fantastic. It's a really cool record, even though I know nothing about Mega City 1. So maybe you do, I don't. But anyway, I found this was really cool. So if I ever see anything with Jeff Barrow and Ben Salisbury's name on it together, because they've done a lot of things, I might be tempted to buy it. From there, I went to a record I've shown only once before when I got it, The Grid with Robert Fripp, called Leviathan, where they unearthed some really old soundscapes works that Fripp did, and then The Grid kind of added some music to it. That's probably not a very good description. So it's all sort of electronic, ambient in places. Some of the reviews say that the sounds sound a little bit dated, but I quite like it. I think I like disc 2 better, just by a little bit, but yeah, really cool. So I bought this with the proceeds from a VC contest I won that was run by Jonathan, the Cheap and Cheerful record collector, and I have listened to it a few times, and it sat on the shelf. It's 2021, so I haven't listened to it in a couple of years, but I really enjoy this. Of course, I like Fripp, and it's got that sort of really cool style, I don't know what you call it, electronic style, which is pretty cool. Here's a record I purchased in Buffalo last July at the MGK meetup. One of 2 records from the same band that I bought on the same trip, which is Yellow, and this is called, I always forget the name of this, 1980 to 1985, the new mix in one go. Oh, it's right on the front too. So it's like 80 to 85 there. It's remixes of older tracks presented here on a double record, which is really good. I kind of only really knew a couple of tracks from Yellow. I knew Oh Yeah, and there's a handful that I knew. But overall, I think they're very interesting. And, you know, if I do see a Yellow record for an affordable price, and I haven't really searched them out, but I would grab something at a good price. Now, weirdly, this said, I don't know where I put the inner sleeve. The inner sleeve had a sticker that said Mint, but it's not really. There's one track on disc 2 that has a scratch in it that I overlooked when I bought it, so it kind of clicks a few times. But other than that, it's fine. Can't even tell you the guys' names because I forget, although it's probably printed in here. There we go. So it includes their discography, and I guess the highlighted ones are the tracks that are on here. Boris Blanc and Carlos Perron, I guess. Oh no, I shouldn't just pull out things that are in bold. Dieter Meyer, I don't know. Who can say? And this well-known Vertigo label. Quite enjoyable, quite enjoyable. And then lastly for this round, I will talk about, very briefly, this record from David Bowie called Young Americans. Fantastic record. I think this is, I don't know, the Plastic Soul period. I'm not sure how well this is regarded by Bowie fans. I actually think it's quite great. Quite great. Young Americans has always been a favorite track for me from Bowie. And I remember looking at this like hundreds of times before I realized he had a cigarette here. I just kind of overlooked it. But such a great record with Young Americans. Wind, Fascination. Somebody Up There Likes Me, Across the Universe, in which John Lennon shows up to play guitar. Really cool. RCA labels. And again, you know, it has a bit of crackle between tracks. It's one of those things, you know, sometimes you buy records from stores, they don't have a machine, they don't have a turntable where you can listen to it. So I don't even know when I bought this. I can't be sure, but it is terrific. Such a great record. Very nice cover too. That is it for today. I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.